Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Innovation Cafe. Today, I'm really excited to have a guest speaker with us today who will be speaking about the automobile industry. The automobile industry is one where there's a lot of disruption, a lot of innovation happening at the moment. I'm really excited to have Tapan Trivedi with us. Tapan has a lot of experience both in the technology as well as the business side of the automobile industry, and who will be speaking to us about all aspects of innovation. So, as usual, if you have any feedback, please do let me know, and I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Hi, Tapan. Thank you very much for taking your time to be here today. So just to start off with Tapan, would you mind just elaborating on your background? I understand you've got both a technology as well as business background in the automobile sector. So if you could just elaborate maybe on what you've done, your experience to date, that would be great as a start.
Yeah, sure, Naveen. So first, thanks. It's a great pleasure to talk with you on Naveen's Cafe. So on my side, I started my career as an engineer in telecom industry. I wrote embedded software to support mobile communications using advanced technologies of early days. Then I started becoming very interested in the business side, particularly understanding the markets and striking chord with customers with value proposition and so on some of the very complex technologies such that customers can appreciate the benefit and have willingness to pay for the underlying technology. So I completed my MBA from HEC and changed my career tracks to business side. After my MBA, I worked as a cross-sector business consultant and had opportunity to work on many interesting projects on topics of business transformation, operational effectiveness, and business development. Then in 2016, I was approached to support Nissan on the development of connected cars program. As I started to educate and evangelize benefits of vehicle data to different business functions such as warranty, quality, after sales, and marketing, among others, I obtained a kind of crash course from cross-functional colleagues and developed good understanding of how the business works at OEMs and the opportunities and challenges at functional level. Since I joined Nissan, I have been relishing my experience in automotive sector, which is going through some really interesting times.
Yeah, so the automobile sector is one of the few sectors that are actually completely transforming, isn't it? I mean, every decade you see large innovations completely changing the industry. So if you look at, say, the next 5 years, Tapan, what do you see as some of the big innovations we can expect to see in this sector?
Yeah, I think I would rather look at the. So there are four areas. One is connectivity. Second is mobility solutions. Third is electrification, and fourth is autonomous driving. And I think that these four areas will dominate the industry over next decade, if not more. So yeah, I mean, this all these areas are today clearly disrupting automotive industry, but at the same time offering a lot of opportunities in creating new value propositions, value chain, and businesses in this sector.
Yeah, so I was listening, Tapan, to your podcast, in fact, with Richard the other day, and I was fascinated. So this electric vehicles concept, we all know what that is. It's cars using electricity instead of petrol. But I guess what we don't understand is it's actually changing quite a lot of the way that people interact with vehicles and the commoditization of electricity. So could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on how you think the electrification process is going to change the industry, and also day to day how we consume electricity on a day to day basis?
So, great question, Naveen. So, first, let us start by talking about the drivers of electrification. So, if we look at electrification today, it has a huge push from regulations and government policies. Today, government policies rely on both push and pull mechanism. They are pushing OEMs to produce and sell electric vehicles as much as possible, so that there's kind of decrease in emissions, the transport emissions. And on the pull side, they are still offering substantial grants to customers, potential customers, to buy electric vehicles and to set up the home charging point. and to make the electric vehicles, let's say, more attractive. So these factors are really increasing or supporting the electrification process. It's happening at a rapid pace at the moment. Now, if we talk about the impact of electric vehicles on the industry, first, the OEMs have to make some significant upfront investment to be able to build capabilities and produce electric vehicles. Then, on top of that, electric vehicles are much more simpler in terms of powertrains. The EV powertrains require 60% less components compared to ICE powertrains. And then, on top of that, during the life of the electric vehicles, the maintenance cost on EVs is substantially less compared to ICE. So it is having some significant impact on the established value chain and the key players in the value chain of the automobile segment. However, at the same time, there are plenty of other opportunities that EVs promise, and some of them, as you already mentioned, in first achieving net zero target, cutting emissions, and supporting by let's say mobilizing a little bit more the electricity around the country. The second aspect of electrification is obviously infrastructure. And today, I think we've made a good progress in UK in terms of setting up the infrastructure. It is happening at a good pace. Government is very interested. They are offering significant support and is also kind of encouraging public-private collaboration to increase the pace at which the infrastructure is developed in the country. And this new infrastructure will obviously help on one hand the ramp up of EVs, but on the second hand, we are expecting this infrastructure to create some new business opportunities which were not existing before. Electric vehicles today work on battery, and batteries are used as electricity storage devices. They can be used as electricity storage devices mainly because of some advances in battery technology and charging technology, mainly the bidirectional charging. The smart technology can be added to the vehicles such that the vehicles can charge when the electricity is cheaper, and this normally happens at off-peak time during night times when there's the demand side is less, and during the day when the demand side is more, when the electricity is more expensive, and if there's no need for the driver to use the car, then the car can still be left uncharged. So EVs can play a very important role in supporting the grid balancing, where during the daytime, when the demand is more, it can release the power into the grid so that it can stabilize the supply to meet the demand. And during the night time, when the demand is low, it can try to draw the electricity from the power station so that on one hand it can balance the grid, and on the other hand it can help the customer by getting electricity at low tariff. So electrification, in my opinion, is having a two-sided effect. One is it's obviously disrupting existing, let's say, value proposition, value chain in the automobile sector. At the same time, it's opening up new opportunities to develop.
There's a lot of electric vehicle impact that we don't think about. So this example that you just mentioned is almost like we're making a stock market out of electricity, isn't it? So the cars can supply into the grid when the price is high, you're making money, and then you're buying the electricity when the price is low. And I suspect the similar way there must be other impact areas like how do you purchase electricity? Do you buy electricity at your home, or do you buy it at a hotel, at various charging points? So I guess there's a lot of innovation there. So just coming back to your original point, so we mentioned the four themes. So we've covered electricity, and if we just touch on to connected cars next. So with connected cars, if I understood this correctly, it's where you've got all cars are talking to each other, data being transferred between the cars. Is that correct? I mean, how do you define connected cars, and what do you think are some of the innovations we're going to see in that theme?
So when we talk about connected cars, it is the communication between car and the driver or the owner of the car. It is the communication between the cars, and we'll see more and more of that as we move forward with developments in autonomous driving. And the third is getting the interesting data, relevant data from the car, so that the car makers can help their customers, mainly with predictive analysis and informing customers before their car is going to break down. That's one of the applications. And then also, if the customer is interested, the customers can be offered some services, such as insurance services that would use the car data. So, which on one hand can help customers benefit from low premium insurance, and on the other hand, it can help insurance companies to evaluate the risk of its customer base. So plenty of applications with connected cars as well. And I think today we are just scratching the surface. The fact is, I was just reading some article, actually, it was from IDC, and it said that by 2025, we are going to reach 175 zettabyte of data globally. That's the amount of data that will be generated. And that's the IoT data from all devices. But if we look at the data coming out of the car, then some studies suggested that this would be over 100 exabyte of data. So, which is very small compared to 175 zettabyte of all the data coming out, but it's still a huge amount of data. 100 exabyte of data is still significantly huge when we talk about let's say companies or enterprises to be able to consume such amount of data, to process them and to make sense of this data. So I think there's a lot of potential, and for me it's really a gold mine. It's gold mine because it can give so much data about the vehicle, data to the car companies about the health of the vehicle, so that they are able to inform their customers at the right time about the right concerns that can help them build strong customer relationship, and also maybe propose some value added services. Then apart from that, they have so many additional opportunities for third parties. And today, if we talk about electrification, planning of infrastructure, for example, planning of infrastructure is capital intensive, and it requires a good amount of planning, such that the right amount of chargers, the operators want to install the right chargers, not too fast, not too slow, but maybe right based on the customer base they are expecting at that time, at the right location. And they have to prioritize the locations in terms of rollout. They don't want to prioritize the rollout in some remote areas where today there are not so many electric cars. And today, I think this is just one example, but if we are able to extract data from electric vehicles, and if we are able to make some kind of patterns in terms of where EVs travel, the density of EVs, and take the battery data along their path, build a trend in terms of at which point today the EVs are, kind of running out of battery. You map this data with the information from electricity companies in terms of where there are strong power lines that can support rapid charging or that can support, the regular charging. You can have some kind of information on the good location, sweet spots. And then if you then map it with basically the volume of the vehicles, then analyze it with the possibility for the customer to stop that, you can then forecast, estimate some kind of revenue. And based on all this information, you can prioritize the building of the location. So, and again, this is just one example. We can have so many such applications of the vehicle data.
Yeah, so they say data is the next oil, isn't it? So yeah, I'm sure there must be a lot of value in the data we generated. Okay, so Tapan, if we just move now to the third point that you mentioned, the mobility, and I think if we combine this with the current day and age we live in, with the impact of COVID, Now, because of COVID, there's been a lot of technology innovations, of course, that have come through the market. For example, I've heard about augmented reality being used because we don't have so many people going into showrooms to look at cars and buy the cars. I'm sure they must be having an impact on the number of sales that are made, which in turn mean that having something like augmented reality means that the consumers can experience buying a car just like being in a showroom without actually physically going to the showroom. Right, and the same concept I think I've also seen in servicing, for example, where using augmented reality, you're given the instructions of what to do in the car, so that you can do all of that in an interactive way, all being done remotely. So definitely, there's a lot of technology coming through because of the impact of COVID. Now, from a mobility perspective as well, Tapan, do you see any innovation changes happening there? I'm sure COVID would have had an impact on aspects such as shared mobility, for instance. So you're able to elaborate maybe on what else you're seeing in terms of COVID and the impact on the automobile industry?
On mobility side, COVID is definitely having some impact. Before COVID, I think there was a good momentum, but the shared mobility is expected to increase maybe many folds after autonomous cars hit the market. Because when autonomous cars hit the market, then there will be cars that customers will own as their, let's say, own private kind of vehicle. But then there will also be fleet of cars which will be open for customers to share. So that is really when we are expecting the shared mobility to let's say, exploit its full potential benefits. And this is something that I think we will expect maybe in the later half of this decade when we'll start seeing the pool of autonomous cars.
So when I was younger, I used to watch a show called Knight Rider on TV, which at the time was about a car that drives itself and is very intelligent. Of course, back then it was all science fiction, but now we're already seeing, for example, in Milton Keynes, we've got the Starship robots. We can use an app and order groceries, and the robot will bring the food to us. I'm sure, I'm assuming now the Knight Rider will become a reality very soon. So, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think we'll start seeing Knight Rider cars on streets of Milton Keynes anytime soon?
I did. It very interesting time indeed. And as you mentioned, so many robots from Starship, and I think we are going to see. In my opinion, we will see some vehicles with very high degree of AD capability towards the end of this decade. So already, as we speak, and as you would all know, there are 5 levels of AD, and sorry, there are 6 levels of AD, and today we are already halfway through. In general, from industry point of view, we are halfway through, and and with all the interest, with all the investment and motivation that all the companies have in this area, I am very hopeful that we'll see similar car as Knight Rider by the end of this decade.
Brilliant. I hope so too. Thank you very much, Tapan. It's been amazing talking to you, and thank you so much for all the insight from the business. So thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Naveen. It's great having being here.